All right, we are good. We're through the intro. Welcome, everybody. I guess I'll take the reins here, as usually Chad does our intro. Or do you want to take over, Bud? I don't want to jump in your shoes.
Yeah, I'll do
Go
it.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I actually couldn't hear the intro, so.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't hear it at all. That's why I was shaking my head no while you were playing it.
I heard it through mine. I don't know why it didn't go through.
Yeah. Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to Explorers, Seekers of the Truth. I cannot, for the life of me, remember what episode we're on.
I think it's 14.
14.
Actually.
This is gonna be our running gag. I can't remember a number. Remember everything else. But as always, I'm joined by my co-host tonight, Lesson Kavitz. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great, Bud. How about you?
Cold. Very, very cold.
Yeah, I don't know for anybody out there. I don't know where you're all located, but in the northeastern part of the United States, we were getting hammered with this Arctic blast of freezing cold air, freezing cold temperatures, snow, a mix of everything. It's just been really, really bad the last, almost 3 weeks now.
Well, down here, it's gotten bad the last probably 2 or so weeks. It was still a little bit warm there a while back, but it is below freezing now.
Yeah, so. It's cold, very cold. but anyways, I guess I'll jump onto my usual shtick here and remind everybody how they could get in touch with us. You could always go to, let's see if it works this time. Oh, no, you son of a gun, yeah. Let's go right back to doing what it did before. Here we go. Our website, www.explorersgroup.com. You could go out and check out some archive shows, check out any kind of new information we have out there, and some gear and stuff that we have on there. It's kind of cool, so go check it out. Let us know what you think. You could also follow us on Twitter, which we were just talking about before, that I got to figure that out, at Explorers Group. So check us out on Twitter, follow along there, and obviously, where you're viewing us now on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers.
Oh, I was really hoping you were going to mess it up so I could get you this time. But okay, fine. Be all professional.
I had to. I really had to take my time on that. And the last thing is, as you guys watch the show on Facebook, you guys could comment and kind of chime in throughout the show. Hey, Michelle. See, Michelle just chimed in. Hiya. Thank you. So we can see you on BeLive. BeLive has a cool thing set up so we could interact back and forth. So, check us out on there. So, and communicate with us. So, okay. So tonight's show, I guess I'll start it out here if you don't mind, my friend. We talked about werewolves in one of our past shows. Actually, it was the All Hallows Eve show, where we talked about the classic monsters, vampires, witches, and werewolves. We posted a story on our Facebook page a little while ago about, I guess, a werewolf epidemic in England. And there's a small village in England that's supposedly being terrorized by werewolves for decades. So we're going to start talking about that. We're going to kind of have that as the lead into the show. And we're going to talk about some other stories throughout history of lycanthropy or werewolfism, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to transition into other stories more prevalent in the United States, like about the Dogman and its correlation and relationship to Bigfoot. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about. But I think we're going to start it off with that story that we posted, which kind of inspired tonight's show. So do you want me to start out on that, Bud, or do you... I kind of have all the info up if you want me to kind of run with it. We'll go back and forth.
Yeah, you could jump in here and I'll just kind of co-host for a while.
There you go. I'm used to you starting the show, so this is kind of off for me. So, all right. So like we were saying, there is that story that we posted on Facebook. It's in Cannock Chase, England, which I believe it's a town or a county. It says that there's places where there have been werewolf sightings in central England. Seems to be a strange place for there to be a hotbed of paranormal activity, and yet it may just be. So I guess over the last 30 years, this area has been terrorized by what they say are dozens of werewolf sightings. It happens during the day, happens during the night, And paranormal experts believe that there's proof that there's werewolves in the woods of the Midlands of that region. So, and also they say that it isn't just werewolves that are stalking the trees and cemeteries of Cannock Chase. The area seems to be some kind of a portal to the bizarre and a magnetic for the unexplained. So in addition to the Cannock Chase werewolf rumors, there's reports of UFOs, ghostly children. There's even been bizarre sightings of what looked like a medical experiment gone wrong. I guess a pig man, half pig, in conjunction with this, with the werewolf sighting. So it's very strange. And the more I started reading into that, the more I started thinking, like, England has a lot of ancient sites that have yet to be truly explained or figured out, like Stonehenge, and there's a few other places in England too that are just very odd. And some experts think that the placement or the regions of these ancient areas have a correlation somehow. And if you go across the globe, a lot of these places link and they have a pattern which they call ley lines. And ley lines are the apparent alignment of landforms, places of ancient religious significance or culture, and they often include man-made structures like the Stonehenge and stuff like that. And they're ancient, they're straight paths or routes to the landscapes, which are believed to have spiritual significance or have a lot of magnetic energy. And if any of you out there who are into like paranormal investigating and stuff like that, a lot of people believe that areas with high magnetic fields, running water, that may be over a lot of limestone, areas that hold energy, often kind of provoke or feed and fuel paranormal activity or give apparitions or supernatural beings their power to manifest. And these ley lines are supposedly big contributors to that. And ironically, I looked at a map of England and the ley lines that cross it, and I took a screenshot off of Google Maps of England and where this Cannock Chase is located. And it's almost smack dab in an intersection between two ley lines, which really made me think that could be a big contributor to all these unknown or these bizarre unexplained goings on. So I thought that was kind of cool. So that's just food for thought for all you guys out there. So as this story goes on, it talks about how this area in central England is a hotbed of werewolf activity. That we kind of covered that. And then there's also the sightings started after supposedly a local young man, made a pact with the devil. So the devil is given responsibility for a lot of evil stuff, from curses to the music of Charlie Daniels. But he may also be to blame for the werewolf of Cannock Chase, England. Now, I'm just reading basically verbatim off this website, but it says, according to the local legend, everything started getting weird in 1975. That's when a 17-year-old boy in central England in the mid-'70s took out his Ouija board, and I see Paul Filiash reacted there. If you're still listening, Paul, there. Another reason why I don't use Ouija boards. So he took out his Ouija board to test its powers. He said he would trade the devil his soul for the power to turn into a werewolf. And shortly after, a friend said that he received a phone call from the teen, but could only hear odd guttural noises from him. So the same young man was found dead soon after, and he had killed himself using a silver knife. And silver, of course, is the only way to kill a werewolf, or one of the ways to kill a werewolf, as we had talked about in our All Hallows Eve special. And a lot of the sightings, for whatever reason, seem to take place primarily in the cemeteries, and cemeteries naturally are a frightening place, especially after dark, because you think of all those who are laid to rest there, or there any restless spirits, or then you always think about zombies and stuff like that. So cemeteries are spooky just on their own, but now you add a werewolf epidemic into that, and that's kind of ups the creep factor of it. But But yeah, so it talks about the cemeteries and stuff like that. And I don't know why my screen is freezing. But and it also says the werewolf has left evidence of its haunting practices. A werewolf in town is creepy enough, but the most compelling evidence for the creature is also upsetting. In addition to showing itself to many people in a cemetery devoted to thousands of dead soldiers, evidence has been found near the cemetery that gives compelling evidence of the werewolf's existence. There have been several pets that have gone missing from homes in the area, and stranger still, several mutilated animal carcasses have been found near the cemetery. Could this be the leftovers from the werewolf's nightly hunting practices? Who knows? And there is, ironically, a hog farm. I guess hog farming is kind of big around that area, which might kind of contribute to that man-pig thing. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the West Midlands of England, the Staffordshire County area. One of the things to point out that this area actually has the most werewolf sightings currently in all of Europe. They're also famous for the Tamsworth pig, which is what they breed and farm out through that area. So it's definitely an area with a abundant food supply.
Right. I mean, what better place? Farms. Yeah, and what better place for a werewolf to hang out than a place that has a lot of bacon? You know?
I'd hang out there.
I'd never leave, yeah. So, I mean, that's a great point right there, that they have the abundant food source and really no need to go elsewhere because everything that they need is right there. Yeah. But another thing that they were saying is the werewolves may be somewhat evolved. And let's see what they have to say here. Werewolves and the night go together like Dracula and blood. After all, legend has it a werewolf transitions from man to wolf when the moon is full. And ironically, speaking of full moon, didn't we just have what they call the wolf moon?
Yeah, we posted about it
2 days ago. Yeah. So that's kind of odd that we're talking about, the werewolf and stuff, and we just had the wolf moon. So that's kind of neat how they kind of landed next to each other.
I have a non-related story.
Okay, go ahead.
I was driving yesterday, and I'm driving the back roads, and there's this big open field, and it's ringed with the road and a tree line. Mm-hmm. And don't I see from a distance at the edge of the tree line in the field a big black dog just running along the tree line on the way here. Now, it was a big, massive type pit bull mixed type dog. But I mean, it was just weird. And then get down the road a few miles, and I see two more black dogs running on the other side of the road. And the one was actually carrying a squirrel in its mouth.
Get out of here.
Yeah, right outside of Lynchburg.
That's weird, man. That's like a dark omen. You should go to church. That is odd.
Well, I've seen the two dogs running alongside the road before. The houses are right up against the road in this part.
Okay.
The one up in the field, I couldn't. Somebody could have been out hunting, and down here you can use dogs to hunt deer and stuff.
Right.
So you never know. But it was really cold out for a dog to be out by itself like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Oh, Michelle has no reports of attacks on humans in England. I don't know, really. I mean, there wasn't really anything written about human attacks. It was mainly on livestock and family pets. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, my dear. I don't know. But I'm sure at some point in history there has been attacks. And actually, we have some stories that we're going to be getting to that have a lot of human attacks that were, supposedly werewolves. But we'll get to that next. So, yeah, we were talking about how they evolved. Let's see. Yeah, the Cannock County monster seems to be an exception to the rule. So let's see. So we were saying about how a werewolf typically transitions. So they transition from a man to a wolf when the moon is full. It says, however, the Kenneck County monster seems to be an exception to this rule. In 2007, a mailman reported a local ghost hunting club local ghost hunting club that he had seen the creature. Stranger still, it happened while the postman was delivering the day's mail, so it happened during the day, not under the full moon. So the letter carrier said that at first he thought nothing of the creature, believing it to be a dog. He was surprised when the animal stood up on its hind legs and ran into the woods like a person. Perhaps the wolves have evolved to exist or the werewolves have evolved to exist in daylight as well now. So that's kind of weird, how, because like typically a werewolf would only be out at night under the light of the full moon. When the moon goes down, they return back to their human form. So to see one during the day is weird. And that kind of goes into the Dogman topics that we'll talk about later. So the werewolf may be the result of sick experiments, and he may not be the only one. According to the urban myth, after World War II, the governments of England and the United States conducted human experiments similar to the ones Nazis had undertaken. One such experiment was crossbreeding a human with a pig, and according to the story, it worked, except the pig-human hybrid escaped and hid in the Cannock Chase woods. A witness saw the beast and reported that it was 7 feet tall and had the head of a pig, including a giant snout. If a pig man was created, could it stand to reason? Can it stand to reason a wolf man also created in these bizarre experiments? That's kind of weird. Well, wasn't it during like the Stalin era in Russia where they were trying to create that half man, half ape army? It was trying to build the perfect soldier.
Yeah, and you got to realize, like, sheep, I think sheep genetically are close to us, or chemically. Pig's blood is close, and organs are close to human. Because I guess some transplant, the first one they used was actually a pig or something like that.
Yeah, it was like was it a pig liver or something like that
something like that? Yeah,
something really, yeah.
So some of that stuff isn't as far-fetched, with the actual chemistry and stuff like that of the body. It's not necessarily possible, but not necessarily that these experiments weren't attempted. There were German experiments, American experiments, Russian, Japanese experiments that were doing some crazy stuff back then.
Well, I think the Russian doctor or scientist, or whatever you want to coin him as, he was coming near to success until they finally pulled the plug on him that it was unethical. Because I guess he was trying to use human females as, I guess, the surrogate and gorilla sperm. I guess they were trying to impregnate the women, and that wasn't working. And then they're trying to go on to a more of a DNA kind of experimentation.
Yeah.
But it couldn't go any further because I guess people were complaining and they deemed it unethical. So that was that.
Yeah, and Stalin-esque Russia was a very different, time and place, where Stalin at one time is, do that, and then 2 weeks later he's, inviting you to dinner and poisoning you. So it's not a...
Pig and elephant genes don't mix. That's true, Andy. So it is weird, and it's kind of scary to think about all the stuff that did take place, experimentation wise, and it wasn't that long ago that they were trying to conduct this stuff. And I know that one of the experiments was they successfully transplanted, it was some kind of a monkey, where they took its head off of its own body and transplanted it onto a new body, and it actually was successful. The monkey survived.
Oh, yeah. And we say it's not that long ago, and you got to think about it. Not all these projects ended because of the end of the war or anything like that, or, like with Stalin's project. There's no guarantee that that was the only doctor working on it.
Right, right.
He may have come up with the idea and they may have ran it through their, scientific community, and a few of them said, I think we could do it. So they fund one guy. Well, if you fund one, you're going to fund another.
Right, exactly.
Because you're looking for the closest, quickest answer to have it work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
a lot of people were saying too that I guess the Almasty or the Almasty of Russia, the Russian Bigfoot, was a product of that experimentation.
Now, wasn't the female that they allegedly captured actually prior to that, though?
Well, yeah, one of the they were thinking that she was actually Neanderthal.
Yeah,
that she was a relic hominid, like from our actual family tree, not a hybrid of or a result of the experimentation. Yeah. But they were thinking that she could have been some sort of a missing link. But I don't know if they necessarily tried to say she was Bigfoot. But she was some kind of crazy wild woman. But I think they did DNA testing on her, and it ended up that she was African, mainly African. And I guess she was. I guess some people back in the day had escaped, and for whatever reason, they found refuge in Siberia or something like that. And there was a whole group of people living out there, and she was one of them. Well, there's actually a lot of her ancestors, a lot of her descendants are actually still alive, and they actually were able to take DNA from them to find out more about her.
Well, you got to realize, I mean, it's not that long ago that human zoos were a thing. Mm-hmm. Bringing tribal people from the Pacific Islands, from Africa, from different parts of the world, from Asia, and
pygmies.
Yeah, having them live in a zoo-like environment.
They'd be put on display.
Yeah, for people. I mean, there was a. I know when I was still with the newspaper, they had done a article about a guy who was a local human zoo exhibit. He had come from Africa or Australia. I think it was Africa, and he basically, had lived in captivity for all these years, and eventually they kind of gave him a home here in Lynchburg area, and until he passed away. Mm-hmm. But he was, I mean, this is like the 1920s, 1930s that this, guy had been brought here. So it's not that, super crazy to think, if you think you're better than a group of people or something like that, or a species of animal, that you would have any problems with doing, research on them. Right. So one of the things you had mentioned, we were talking about ley lines and stuff like that. England does have a lot of intersecting ley lines. Even the United States does. And it depends whose map you look at for ley lines, but like the ancient Ram's Head Inn, which was a Neolithic, gathering spot for the early pagans of, England. And when you get into England, a lot of this like ley line and major Neolithic man structures that are still around, a lot of times do have a lot of UFO reports.
Right. Right.
Yeah, or not even UFOs, but strange lights or strange beings. And it kind of made me think about, not that this is what we're talking about tonight, but like Pennsylvania from the early 70s to the mid 70s with the UFO Bigfoot flap. Mm-hmm. And, trying to like kind of picture where the ley lines run through Pennsylvania and some of the reports that we've heard over the years of that. And, not that ley lines necessarily are a, proven, scientific factor, but it does have some interesting, occurrences that that go along with it. So do you have anything more to add about the...
Well, it's funny that you said about the UFOs, because the next part of that story was that the Cannock Chase isn't just home to the werewolf sightings. It says the area has all kinds of supernatural activity. In the late 1980s and early 90s, the sky was inexplicably dotted with lights that many thought were UFOs. And a police officer even reported seeing an object doing seemingly impossible things in the sky before disappearing. So with both UFO and werewolf sightings in abundance, one has to wonder if there is, a correlation, and perhaps an alien being taking on the form of local lore. It might explain the daytime sightings, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and you got to think about it, like with UFOs and stuff like that. If you're trying to navigate on a planet, and there's this natural energy grid that runs, on the planet, it would be pretty simple to follow that magnetic field or whatever it's creating would be something that you could follow to navigate the planet, with knowing that you're not going to run into a mountain following this line.
True, because if you think about it, a lot of these ancient sites that these ley lines intersect with or create this pathway, a lot of them were theorized to have been, if not designed and built, at least planned by alien beings. Yeah. Like the pyramids. They even thought that aliens had something to do with Stonehenge and the Nazca lines, the Nazca drawings and stuff like that. There's so many weird things. And even with the ancient Mayans, they had pictographs or hieroglyphs of people from the sky visiting and stuff like that, and they would do the skull binding to replicate their gods. And if you think about aliens, typically they are the big heads, larger heads, more conical shaped, So you never know. Maybe they do use that as kind of a roadway,
Yeah, or you think about all those structures that are built on these lines or the intersections of lines.
Mm-hmm.
And if a group is using these to navigate, and two of them cross, it's going to be a higher traffic area for these Neolithic man is going to see more of those gods or the lights or
this phenomenon that they can't explain.
Yeah, and they're gonna, if they're not scared of it, if there's some kind of understanding of it, they're going to build their temples, their monuments in those areas as like a, hey, look, we're here, we appreciate you.
Their place of worship, their way to communicate and interact with their quote gods and stuff like that. So that makes perfect sense. That they would place these structures in the areas where they're seeing this phenomenon.
Yeah, I knew it made perfect sense. I said it.
Well, yeah, there you go. But should I go back to the story, or do you have something else to add there?
No, I was going to kind of ask you, is there like an eyewitness, like, you have your typical Bigfoot sighting, people have like a description of this, creature. So is there like a standard kind of description, or is it kind of all over the place?
Well, if I could get my stupid computer to work, I'd try and answer that question for you. Let's see. Well, it goes on to say about how there's the most bizarre theory of the area, sightings. There's a mention of black-eyed children that hide in the woods in Cannock Chase alongside the werewolf. And I know there was just something. Here we go. Eyewitnesses. Jesus Christ, come on. I don't know why it is lagging so bad here. Maybe my internet is literally freezing. Okay. Eyewitnesses describe the werewolf as huge and terrifying. All told, there have been 35 believed sightings of a werewolf, and 21 were where people came forward to tell their stories firsthand. The reports are terrifying. According to witnesses, the werewolf stands 7 feet tall and is covered in hair, looks like a human-wolf hybrid, and has a snout. The fact that so many people report seeing the creature, and at different times of the day, points to the notion that there may really be something out there in the woods. And it says paranormal investigators constantly monitor the news in the Midlands for more proof that the creature is real. Did I lose you? You just walked right out on me? All right. Well, I'll keep going, everybody. The werewolf was captured on video, apparently. If I could get my stupid computer to work. There we go. The advent of inexpensive video cameras used for action sports has turned nearly everyone into a potential daredevil, waiting for an awesome moment to go viral. 2 mountain bikers in Kenneck Chase got more than they bargained for. In 2009, the cyclists were recording their ride, and the video shows a fun day of single-track shredding, but it also has an unexplained highlight. A creature can be seen stalking in the woods for a few seconds of the film, and it looks too tall to be a man and walks upright like a large dog on its hind legs. I can't, unfortunately, show you guys that video because BeLive, I could show pictures on BeLive, but I can't actually show video, which kind of stinks because if you go to our Facebook page and click on the link about the werewolf, scroll down, it says the werewolf is captured on video. There is, I believe, oh no, that's just a little snippet. No, they don't have the video on there. If I'll try and Google it and I'll post it on our Facebook page for you guys. Unfortunately, I can't get into that right now. Shoot. Yeah, can't get into it. But if I could back up. Boy, oh boy, this is going so slow. So, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the bizarre theories. If I could get this damn thing to stop jumping around. There we go. It says werewolves aren't even the most bizarre theory for the area of sightings. It says Ouija boards, UFOs, werewolves. It seems far-fetched so many supernatural things could be happening in one area. So I just started jumping ahead since you just got up and left there. Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all right. What? Y'all good?
Yeah, I had to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. We don't have.
Oh, all right. Well, usually you would say I'll be right back, but you just jumped up and ran. I was like, God, I hope he's okay. But anyways, I talked to them. I was reading about, and I don't want to scroll. Oh, God damn it, there it goes. We talked about the eyewitness reports. Basically, it's very similar to what a lot of the Dogman reports have been. You know, close in comparison to the height of a Bigfoot, covered in hair. You know, dog snout. You know, half man, half wolf. Typical werewolf. You know, and they were any kind of if there was any evidence or any reports. So I guess these 2 dudes were out riding their mountain bikes and they got a video clip of one. The clip wasn't in the story. It was just a snippet, like a screenshot, and it was really bad. But I'm going to see if I can find that video, and I'll post it up on our Facebook page after the show ends, and people can check it out and whatnot. But I was starting to talk about other bizarre happenings that were going on, and it was saying, Ouija boards, UFOs, werewolves, question. Let's see, it seems far-fetched, so many supernatural things could be happening in one area, but again, like we were talking about with those ley lines, it's not surprising given the fact that they are known to generate unknown or inexplicable activity. But at least one scientific-minded local agrees that and has a theory to explain the possible werewolves. This paranormal expert, quote, claims the werewolf isn't a werewolf at all. Instead, the creature could be a subterranean Stone Age throwback, so a relic hominid, if you will. Essentially, this person thinks ancient cavemen could have survived for years in the mines of the area and have remained primitive, failing to evolve with the rest of humanity. What's more, the expert claims that there are more than one of the creatures and that there is actually an entire pack of them stalking underground, only coming out to eat deer, livestock, and pets. I don't know. That sounds even as far-fetched as a werewolf to me. And if my computer will actually work and scroll to the next thing, I'll talk about the black-eyed kids. But what do you think about that with the relic hominid?
I kind of would believe more in a relic, Stone Age man than I do in some of the, I would believe that quicker than I would believe a werewolf.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still a hard pill to swallow. I mean, logically, it would make more sense.
Yeah, it's not like that makes 100% perfect sense, because you would have a group of a breeding population who would just be interbreeding over and over again.
Right.
So eventually they would become so damaged, genetically, that it wouldn't be something that you could continue the genetic line. So they would have to die out at a certain point.
True. And if they are so interbred, I mean, that would explain how they're not as easily identified as an actual person, more as a monster. You know what I mean? Because there was a photographer, and God, the name escapes me, but there was a photographer that was in the Deep South, in the backwoods areas of the Deep South, that actually photographed a lot of like the I guess the inbred hillbilly population, for lack of better terms, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but apparently, well, if you take like the movie Deliverance, how there's like the inbred hillbillies and blah, blah, blah. Supposedly there are actual family groups that are so deep in the mountains and so tight-knit, breeding within the family that they are severely deformed. And I remember actually seeing some of the pictures, and it was frightening. I mean, they are very, very hard to look at, for to put it, bluntly. And I could see if somebody were just happened upon one of them in an area where you usually are used to seeing what we consider a normal person, and you see somebody so severely deformed, I could see how that would be like right away your brain would just think, oh my God, it's a monster.
Well, yeah, I mean, it